And Deanna, I just want to stick with you just on the campaigns question here, because we've also seen really interesting news out of Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis has brought in $15 million in fundraising over the past 3 months for his presidential campaign. Does this show that there's still life in the DeSantis campaign, which a lot of people have been writing off?
You know, $15 million may sound like a lot to the average person, but for campaigns, especially when you look at the numbers that Donald Trump is bringing in, I think yesterday he announced that his campaign brought in $45 million in the same amount of time. 15 million is not that much. And aides on the DeSantis campaign are reportedly saying that out of that 15, only 5 million is cash available that they can spend during the primaries to get the GOP nomination and to run against Joe Biden. So 15, yeah, not that much money.
Right. Okay. And, you know, in other bad news for Ron DeSantis, Brianna, he's been overtaken in the polls by former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley in both South Carolina and New Hampshire. Is Nikki Haley starting to really see a bit of a surge here after her performance in that last debate, do you reckon?
No, I think Nikki Haley, just like Tim Scott, those are presidential hopefuls that are more looking for a seat on the cabinet. Nikki Haley already knows what that's like, of course. But if you remember the last debate, they argued about curtains. That's not what the American people care about. And I do just want to make one note about Ron DeSantis' fundraising, because like Deanna said, it looks good on the surface. But if you go a little deeper, you know, Donald Trump, he has $45 million, but about $36 million is for the primary. And if you look at DeSantis, another thing, he is taking his staff from Florida to Iowa, whereas a more well-resourced campaign will actually use operatives on the ground. So he is really stretching what he has thin. And if you compare it to 2019 Democrats during the same time period, you had Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren with about $25 million in their quarter fundraising haul. Ron DeSantis is supposed to be the shining star, but when you have Democrats like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren having done better than Ron DeSantis during the same time frame, I think it's a pretty poor indicator.
So, Brianna, and I'm going to put this question to both of you, but Brianna, how long then do you think the Ron DeSantis campaign can keep going?
I think for Ron DeSantis, I mean, look, if you compare him to Donald Trump right now, you look at the polls, it reminds me of Elizabeth Dole and George W. Bush. Elizabeth Dole was seen as the, up-and-coming Republican star who was going to beat George Bush. And within a month, between May and June of the, 2000 election, she significantly declined in the polls. And Ron DeSantis followed that same trajectory. You know, he came up big and mighty. He was kind of getting close to Trump, and then he fell to the wayside. So if he does not do well in Iowa, it would be incumbent upon him to drop out and save himself for 2028.
Yeah, Deanna, what do you think about that? Does he need to be thinking really about his longer-term strategy rather than being kind of a one-hit wonder this year?
I think it all hinges on Iowa, and his campaign told me the same thing. Iowa is the first state in the nation to hold a Republican caucus, so the first time that voters have the opportunity to show who they're going to vote for, and that really sends a signal to the entire country of who's going to be ahead. His campaign tells me that Iowa, if he does well there, if he somehow beats Trump in that first state, that will really show voters across the country that he's still in the race and that it's a race between him and Trump. But like Brianna said, he's been sending staff from Florida to Iowa. He is really hitting the ground running and has a strategy of hitting all 99 counties. And he's putting all his eggs in Iowa. And really, again, that is his number one strategy, to show that if I win here, maybe people really will think that I have a chance still in this race.
And Brianna, I want to move now to California here, where Democratic strategist and fundraiser LaFonza Butler was sworn in as the replacement for Dianne Feinstein in that Senate seat in California. Tell us what your thoughts are on this, because personally, I thought it was pretty incredible that they just gave it to somebody who's a fundraiser and an operative. It seemed like a very cynical move to me. What did you think?
It was a very strategic move. First of all, Gavin Newsom made sure that he was going to pick a black woman, and we see how well that worked out with the vice presidency, so I'm kind of surprised that he thought he should follow the Biden playbook. But LaFonza Butler is unique, because unlike someone like Adam Schiff, who hasn't been drawing in that much fundraising, LaFonza Butler has showed she appeals to the abortion wing of the Democratic Party, right? And we know abortion was on the ballot in 2022. It'll be on the ballot again. So he knows that she's able to draw in a ton of donations, and if he should mount a run, whether whether it be in 2024 or in 2028, she would be a really good resource for him to help draw in donations and compete against other Democrats.
And finally, Deanna, I want to ask you about this story out of Washington where it seems that President Biden's dog, Commander, has finally been booted from the White House after multiple biting incidents, aggressive behavior, reports that he attacked Secret Service agents. Why did it take the White House so long to do something about this dog who sounds like he was an absolute menace, and I'm a dog lover, to everybody around the place?
James, I don't know, but I think it might have to do with something that it was the president's dog. I mean, we've known since July that Commander has, I think in July we reported that he bit 7 Secret Service agents and was aggressive to 3 other staffers at the White House. If it was any other dog, if it was just a dog of an average American, I think there would be serious repercussions, serious training, making sure that he gets taken out of the White House so this doesn't happen again. But this week, there were photos, I think reported by the Daily Mail, that showed Commander with his teeth on a staffer. And I think that really finally sent the message to the White House for them to do something about it, where photos are being leaked of the dog attacking people.
Gosh, it's like Commander's the Hunter Biden of dogs. Anyway, Brianna Lyman, Deanna Glebova, thank you both so much for your time tonight on the U.S. Report. Now, in a moment, extraordinary news about a border wall backflip by Joe Biden. Not a literal one, of course, but speaking of the president, watching Joe Biden stumble his way through prepared remarks is always something to behold. I mean, it's a bit like when my Cocker Spaniel Poppy tries to walk on her hind legs. It's a wonder he can do it at all. But the president keeps gamely trying, and this week, in a very special episode of Joe versus the teleprompter, he hit a new level of gameplay when he had to read off the actual name of a website. And I'm afraid to say, it didn't go well.
studentaid.gov/save.